was not and am not a rat.
The Reverend Al Sharpton is denying reports that he was an FBI informant. Documents on the Smoking Gun website show that Sharpton recorded conversations with New York crime bosses during the 1980s. He reportedly was known as confidential informant number 7. But Sharpton says he was a victim. He says he called the FBI after he was threatened. Sharpton admitted recording some conversations, but said he was never told he was an informant.
First, after all these years, the Reverend Al Sharpton admits he was an FBI informant.
Yes, he says that he was the cat that got the rats, but others say that Sharpton's secret life was not by choice.
A stunning revelation from Reverend Al Sharpton. Today, he admitted to being an undercover informant, handing over information on some of New York's most wanted.
Michelle Obama probably never knew that one of the guests at her recent White House 50th birthday party was an FBI mafia informant who helped bring down members of the Genovese crime family. Reverend Al Sharpton, now a confidant of both the First Lady and the President and of Mayor Bill de Blasio, has his own unique take on his days as the government's confidential informant number 7.
In my own mind, I was not an informant. I was cooperating with investigations.
The revelations threaten to embarrass Sharpton as he kicks off his National Action Network convention this week with de Blasio and President Obama the headliners. Sharpton has been dogged for years by reports that he was an FBI informant, helping the government go after boxing promoter Don King and music executives. Now we learn he also went after mobsters, including the legendary Vincent the Chin Gigante, the so-called Oddfather who paraded around in his bathrobe and pajamas. Though he has ducked and dodged questions about whether he wore a wire for the feds, that wasn't possible today since a batch of government documents were made public.
The conversations were recorded.
And there's also the issue of how he became an informant. Some say he was pressured into it after he was caught in a drug sting. This HBO undercover sting video that aired in 2002 shows Sharpton with a cowboy hat pulled down over his bouffant hairdo. Sharpton appears to nod when an agent offers him a cut from future drug sales. But now Sharpton claims he went to the feds for protection from threats from mob-connected music executives and was asked to rat out the bad guys.
They were threatening to kill me.
And while the feds say his information helped bring down guys like Gigante, Sharpton says he didn't know how his information was being used.
I have never met any of these guys. The guy with the pajamas, I don't walk around with guys that walk outside pajamas. I never met these guys.
The Reverend Al Sharpton admits he wore a wire for the FBI, his name now linked in tabloid headlines with the words rat and snitch, after documents identify him as confidential informant CI7. Sharpton helped the government go after boxing promoter Don King, music executives, and mobsters.
In my own mind, I was not an informant. I was cooperating with investigations.
Likely started after he was caught in a 1980s drug sting, as seen in this video, avoiding more trouble by helping the feds. But Sharpton says he went to them because he was getting death threats from mobsters.
They were threatening to kill me.
Sharpton said he would do it all over again. He says his only embarrassment seeing so many old photos of him where he weighed so much more than he does now.
Well, Sharpton says he's not embarrassed by anything that he did. What he is embarrassed about, he says, is how, quote, fat he used to be now that he has reinvented himself as a skinny guy.
My name is Tawana Brawley. All right. I'm not a liar and I'm not crazy.
It was 1987. Tawana Brawley was a 15-year-old who claimed she was raped by 6 white men in law enforcement. And Al Sharpton took up her cause. But there was no forensic evidence of any sexual attack, and there was evidence Tawana made up the whole story. The case, labeled a hoax, was dismissed, and Sharpton was forced to pay $65,000 to those he had named. But you have gone back and looked at things with such a clear eye. You've apologized, you've asked for forgiveness, except on Tawana Brawley. I don't get it.
I'll be honest with you. I have thought about that a million times. I just don't believe they treated that case fair.
If I knew that I had in any way contributed to falsely accusing someone, I think I would feel an obligation to say I'm sorry.
I think you're right. I think the operative word is if you knew that. I don't know that.
If they didn't do
But
it,
but suppose they did.
taking the,
suppose they did.
but they didn't. They didn't.
I remember people saying that Tawana was lying. And to this day, people think Tawana lied, you covered it up, and that there are reports that you told Tawana, just stick with the story, you're going to make money on it.
I believed what the lawyers told. I never asked a 15-year-old girl what happened, and I said that. But I believed the lawyers, and I believed what was said, and I believe she deserved her day in court.
But two of those lawyers wound up, did they get disbarred or
One
suspended?
One of them, I think, was suspended.
C. Vernon Mason, Automatics?
But again, activists go by what is presented and let the courts litigate it. How many times did we go to court and lose on police cases? We won on George Floyd.
An undercover controversy for Reverend Al Sharpton, the daughter of the late Eric Garner, caught on video questioning Sharpton's motives.
She's spoken out at protests and participated in a die-in. The daughter of Eric Garner is now making headlines for questioning what motivates Reverend Al Sharpton, who has frequently appeared with the family. Erica Garner was captured on undercover camera by the website Project Veritas.
So what, you think Al Sharpton is kind of like a crook in a sense? Like you think he's like, he's about his money with you?
Sharpton told CBS 2, quote, "Not only do I think the video was taken out of context, there is nobody in that video that said I did anything with money. What money? There is no money in the Garner case at all." The video also shows other activists criticizing Sharpton. Lots of reaction on social media. David Clark wrote, quote, "There are a lot of racist white men and women who hate Al Sharpton and doing all they can to bring him down." Ty Tansel wrote, quote, "I watched the whole video and I don't think you can take those comments, quote, out of context. I hope that finally, at long last, Sharpton's sins will finally catch up with him."
Sheriff Bob Galtieri almost held back.
I don't have any comment on that. You know, it's a bunch of rhetoric, so I'm not, I didn't pay much attention to it, to tell you the truth.
But he couldn't.
I went there and don't really care what Al Sharpton has to say. Go back to New York, mind your own business.
Sunday saw Al Sharpton join with the parents of Trayvon Martin, civil rights attorneys, and 5 Democratic candidates for governor to demand Galtieri arrest Michael Draka for shooting Marquise McLaughlin. Galtieri says he would have if not for the Stand Your Ground law.
Lock him up or give up your bag.
To the suggestion Sharpton go back to New York, his camp told the Tampa Bay Times on Monday that Galtieri's comments are like those of sheriffs out of the 1960s that called civil rights leaders invited by victims outside agitators.
This case should not be tried in the parking lot of a convenience store or a gas station. It should be tried in a courtroom.
Sharpton promises to keep coming back to Clearwater until charges are filed, which is now up to the state attorney. Will public attention make a difference?
We understand that there are concerns about public safety. We understand that there's needs to deal with crime. But you don't fight crime by becoming criminals yourself. You don't stand up to thugs in the street becoming thugs yourself. You don't fight gangs by becoming 5 armed men against an unarmed man. That ain't the police, that's punks. How do you have the same department that can keep crime down on one side of town without beating folk to death, but you can't do it on the other side of town unless you feel that you can get away with it there? I can't speak for everybody in Memphis. I can't speak for everybody gathering. But for me, I believe that that man had been white, you wouldn't have beat him like that night. No justice.
Reverend Al Sharpton joined the growing chorus of voices demanding accountability in Jordan Neely's death, drawing attention to 2 other men who appeared to have played a role in restraining the 30-year-old.
I'm looking at the video. You got one man choking and the other holding him down. They all need to be in front of a grand jury. Well, it's interesting because his question to me was, why should anyone vote for someone that didn't have political experience, meaning political office? Well, he has never had political office, and he's running for president. And he supported Donald Trump, who never had political experience. So I want to know, is it different rules for me and black candidates than it is for him and Donald Trump? Maybe I'll play him his own words. And I'm looking forward to seeing what his answer will be. And again, I want to deal with substance.